Hi, welcome to A Filthy Talk, a Filthy Lots weekly live panel discussion show coming to you live from North Vancouver on the traditional territories of the Squamish Nation. We'd like to recognize the privilege to work, play, and create in these beautiful lands, and we encourage you at home in the chat to say what traditional territories you're watching from. I am Trevor Gemma. This is Roz Young, returning as fact checker and chat liaison, Matt Baker.
Hello.
Hey man, it's good to have you back. It's been a while.
It is good to be back. And also, we have a redemption for any pink color lighting change.
Oh, okay. I didn't get a chance to disable that because the person, I apologize, the person who takes care of that is actually operating a camera today, but I just saw, you might have seen in the stream, ran over to do so. So I'm sorry, brother.
Thanks, Casey!
And joining us today, we have some special guests from BlackwaterDnD, Em and Tim Carlson.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
How's it going? Thank you guys so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having us. It's awesome to be here.
So we tend to kick this show off with a little segment called Nerd News.
Yes.
So a couple of items that I had. Did you have anything for Nerd News?
Nothing specific. I'm just here to argue with you.
Okay, wait, man, you don't have to argue. I mean, just these aren't my opinions. These are just things.
I think the news is opinions. Go on.
Okay. So the Hogwarts Legacy video game that was announced like 2 years ago finally has a release window, which is holiday 2022, where there's a little more detail now. You will play as fifth-year Hogwarts students in the late 1800s. And and the thing that I found really interesting about the announcement is they took the time to say, Warner Brothers, that J.K. Rowling is not been directly involved with the game, and she's allowed to have her opinions. And then they announced that they have included the ability to make transgender characters in the game.
Oh.
That makes it better.
Yeah.
I mean, better?
Yeah.
Are you likely to buy the game right now?
No.
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 Because like, does that feel like it's just them virtue signaling and being like,
Ooh, man,
trying to
what?
separate and say like, please
Yeah,
spend
it
money
feels like
on
they're
this.
trying to get out ahead of it, right?
Right?
Like,
Yeah.
they're really trying to get out ahead
But
of
they're
it.
also being inclusive, so it's
Yeah.
like,
Well, and I mean, anything that is attached to the Harry Potter universe is going to fund royalties, et cetera, et cetera. So, no, I will not be purchasing the game.
fair enough.
Yeah.
It's a weird world. I still enjoy Harry Potter.
Yes.
I still love the idea of it. I will not. I'm going to say I will not, but like, I mean, oh my god, it's just like Harry Potter Hufflepuff days. I don't know, but I'm gonna try really hard not to buy any new Harry Potter content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do I own a lot of it? Yes. Do I still love it? Yes.
Yeah.
And
difficult.
I think that there's so much that you can still take from it as a person who consumed it at like a specific age. Like I was 11 when the books came out and was like, wow, Harry Potter is the same age as me. Maybe I'll get my letter one day. But I think that it, you know, for me, it did something really wonderful at like a very specific time in my life, and now I can say I don't need to purchase
for,
anymore.
Like so many.
So
people.
many
'Cause, like
people.
I was watching at the time, like it was the I think it was the fourth book. When it was the first time that there was it was big. Like Goblet of Fire was a thick book, and seeing like little kids carrying a book around that they could barely carry.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's not something you see anymore. Like that's amazing.
Matt was looking at chapters during some of that stuff coming out.
Oh.
And it was just wild to be dressed up on these nights and these events and stuff.
Yeah, 4, 5, and 6.
Oh wow. Yeah, that was when it was fervor.
Yeah, I was dressed up like Draco and even had my chapters badge. We just made a new one that said Draco. And
you do.
there were kids that would not talk to me. They walked up, look at that, and just walk away. Or like, I'm not talking to you. Okay. And then other ones that would just follow me around for the night. And you know that those were the best ones.
Slytherins at heart.
Pointed Slytherin.
Yes.
Another thing is that Daredevil in Marvel is getting a reboot as a Disney Plus show. So we know that we're going to be getting Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio because
I'm
they've
in.
shown, Kingpin and Daredevil in the MCU now, but we don't know what else. But they are rebooting it. It has been announced, not just.
It's a full reboot, not like a
No.
soft reboot?
They're not like canonizing the Netflix series. They are rebooting it.
But the first season
They
was
have
so
the
good.
Netflix, all the Netflix series is on Disney+.
I know. That's why it's weird.
And if they're using the same people,
It's a weird choice.
So I guess this is spoilers now. If nobody's seen No Way Home, please just plug your ears. But is his character in that, is that, oh no, I'm sorry,
It's
Roz.
fine. Go, go, go,
It's
go.
on, isn't it? I think it's on streaming now.
Soon, maybe VOD.
Someone said it was already on last week. I heard or something. I don't know.
But is that going to be part of his like new Disney Plus series, I wonder?
I don't know. They haven't announced much yet. Just that they're doing a reboot of Daredevil. Okay. Also, the James Webb Telescope has successfully focused its optics. Tripping over
That's
words.
exciting.
Yeah. Does that mean anything?
I had not had a chance to follow up on space news lately, but that sounds really cool.
Very cool. It's the most powerful telescope ever made.
Oh, that's so
And
awesome.
They
Very
launched
cool.
it successfully. They've deployed it successfully, and now it
Yes.
was going to take. I think there is an image from it now, and it's like it's not the best, but it's cool.
it's all lens flare.
It's like a crazy lens flare.
Abrams is so excited.
But they're going to be able to. They say they're going to be able to look back to like the beginnings of time with it. Essentially.
Whoa.
Fans of
Okay.
Interstellar are probably just pooping their pants.
Yeah, yeah. Also, they found the Endurance, a 100-year-old ship at the bottom of the ocean, and it's like relatively intact. And I wish I had gotten a picture to Alex, and I'm sorry.
That
I
was so
didn't,
cool,
'cause it's,
though.
pretty cool. There's still like
Was that
the rigging is all intact.
Shackleton's ship?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's rad.
Yeah.
Very cool.
It's funny that the reason that I heard about it was that I follow some underwater archaeology people, and someone was posting about it, but super shadily because they didn't discover it. So they're like, oh, so happy for this person. Oh, it's very exciting news to the whole world. And also, I also did these things, but I mean, whatever. And I was like, wow, because like this news is really big, but like apparently the underwater archaeology, world is super intense.
Really competitive.
I mean, there's only so many ships to find.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Cool. I found all these other ones, but no, it's cool. You found his ship. Fine.
Okay, so let us get into the meat of our commonality.
Oh, lettuce and meat.
What? Meat?
Lettuce.
And meat. Oh, I did say lettuce meat, didn't I? Yeah. Thanks, Roz. So, streaming D&D.
Yes.
Something we have very much in common.
do.
And what do you guys stream? Tell
Well-
the people at home.
We run BlackwaterDnD, which is it is our 2-year streamiversary today.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. It has been 2 years of this wild ride of running a D&D streaming channel that was definitely not what we intended it
No.
to be, and it just
Oh.
kind of happened.
What were your intentions?
Well, originally it started as it was just a one shot. 2 years before that, in our living room, we had our friends over for New Year's Eve. We like to do like small parties for New Year's Eve, so it was like a bunch of couples, and we were like, let's play D&D because we had been playing for about a year at that point. And we were like, come over, we'll have dinner, we'll play D&D, it'll be this one shot, and then we'll bring in the new year. And so we had our friends over, and everybody had such a good time that they wanted to keep playing afterwards. And so that grew into our home game, and then over those 2 years, some people came and left, and then it finally solidified. It was like monthly, and then it became, and then it was like bi-weekly.
Then we liked it too much, and we were like, we
Yeah.
need this every week. I need to
Yeah.
do this every week now.
And then the pandemic hit, and we were like, well, we want to keep playing. So,
What else are you gonna do?
Exactly, right?
So let's play. We started playing on Zoom, and then
We did one session on Zoom, and
Yeah.
then we joked with each other, oh, wouldn't this be funny if we streamed it on Twitch?
Oh.
And then we did that 2 days later with no prep.
Really?
Little none. No, we were like, oh, it'll be great. Our friends will come. Maybe my dad will come. Our parent. No, I was like, Tim's mom will show up. It'll be awesome.
it does every week.
Everyone. We love Mama
Rach might be here now. Hi, Tim's mom.
She might be here. And now it's just grown so much. We've had like this amazing community sprout up around our game, and we've had the chance to work with like such fantastic people and gotten to do so many cool experiences that I just never would have thought would have happened.
Like what?
Well, we were at Fan Expo.
Yeah, we were at Fan Expo.
Yeah.
Like a month ago now.
Yeah.
Time is weird.
Yeah, time is weird.
It's hard to keep track. But it was recently, and we've also, as we started to kind of immerse ourselves in kind of the Twitch community, we started meeting other streamers and getting the opportunity to guest in other games and meeting folks from kind of all over. We've made friends with folks in Las Vegas at Art Hard Studios who we love dearly, and folks from a lot of them on the Pacific Coast because they're all kind of in our same time zone as far as streaming. But it's been really great just meeting folks and then guesting on shows or having them on our various shows and getting to know them and building connections. And now we're doing a campaign with Kobold Press, which has been really exciting.
Oh, sweet.
And just building out those connections and meeting all these people in this kind of world that we're in that we never really would have had an opportunity to meet otherwise.
I guested twice on the 3 Like Halflings podcast, which was so fun. Talking to Jeremy and Jasper I did an episode with them talking about death and grief in D&D and how people manage that at the table.
We need to talk more about this.
We haven't had to deal with that much here at all.
Yeah.
One of my areas, I probably should note as well, I'm a therapist. That's what I do outside of playing D&D. I am trained to use D&D as a therapeutic tool, but one of my other specialties is working with high-risk behaviors. So like suicide, self-injury, substance use, and things like that. So dealing with how we as humans deal with death is mirrored in the way that we deal with death at the D&D table, and it's fascinating. And then I also went on and talked about why clerics are the best class ever. It is a hill I will die on. Thank you so much. And it's just the great. Clerics are the best. End of story. Yeah.
I'm on my second cleric right now. Yeah.
Yes.
For the short campaign we're doing. But my first character is a cleric.
Yes.
Actually, I did that because of Ari Salvatore, which we were talking about on camera earlier.
Yes.
But the clerical quintet, the foreword in that, talking about his first character being a cleric because the party needed one, but then he ended up being OP and loving it so much and having so much more depth of story because of the cleric. And I was like, I think I'm gonna make a
Don't
cleric.
you think that the clerics are such an interesting pick for people who, like yourself, who maybe didn't necessarily plan to go in as a healer class, right? But
Cleric's not a healer.
not the hero you wanted to be, but the hero they needed is such a
Oh yeah. I'm not a healer.
I think there's so much too with clerics. Oh my gosh, please stop me. I will talk about this all day.
Go
with
nuts.
the sense of
talk show.
duty and that it immediately, when you have a cleric, it raises the stakes of your character because they have a connection to something bigger than themselves, whether that is a religious order or their god or even principles that they set into themselves. It immediately gives your character something emotional to chomp into, which is a really amazing experience as a role player sitting at the table and gives your DM a plethora of cannon fodder to throw at you anytime.
Use against you.
Yes, thank you.
well, you got to make your characters have a challenging experience to grow.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So much growth. So much growth.
Oh my goodness.
We have 2 Ask Us Anything.
Ooh, awesome.
The first one. Well, it looks like it was Crashes asking where we can watch our new friends from Blackwater on Twitch or YouTube, but we have answered that in the chat already.
Do you want to plug anything in particular about that while you have a chance?
Yeah, so we play every Wednesday and Saturday night. Saturday night is our main campaign. We're on episode 88 this Saturday? And this campaign's been happening for 4 years. We're level 16.
Oh, so you started it off stream.
This was the off-stream one that we started.
Midway. They
Yeah.
were at level 7 or 9?
9.
9.
And then, so we've had 88 streamed episodes, but we've also done a talk show on our channel where myself, one of our producers, and one of our other cast members talked about the pre-stream history. So it's all up there on YouTube for people to watch.
Did that come up a lot from people demanding to know what was happening?
Yes, they're like, please, we need to
things?
know everything about these characters and why I love them so much already. And then it's great. So we play every Saturday night, and then we run Wednesday variety shows.
Yeah.
You want to talk about those?
Yeah, so we have a few concurrent mini campaigns. There's the Weird West, which MGMs, and it's like a 5e but set in the Wild West, and there's lots of tentacles and teeth. She likes to joke about, but that's kind of a low magic setting. It's very, very fun. I get to play in that one. And then there's the Brothers Grimm, which is a fairy tale.
Wait, you're saying low magic setting for the Weird West?
Yes.
But like you're a cleric in that.
Yes.
You have an artificer.
Yeah.
What else did I see? I saw a fair bit of magic. So what do you mean by low magic?
Essentially, for the most part, we have to justify how, like, my cleric, he's a man of God, and like he's a Tempest cleric. So everything is like he has like copper on his cane. He's like an old man, so he's always trying to like invoke the lightning. So a lot of it is like when we do go to cast spells, it's either flavored in such a way that fits with the narrative to make the mechanics fit. Like we have one of our characters he's a warlock.
Oh yes, he is.
Yeah.
And a lot of his is like based around like tonics or some kind of substances that he's finding.
Yes.
And using those to kind of justify what he's doing. And then he has a gun that he uses.
It's an Eldritch blaster.
Yeah. Oh. That's the company.
The company is the Eldritch.
And the artificer is like, he's always tinkering and he's a gunsmith. So it's a lot of that, kind of like justifying, like my character in this last one, he got infected with, there's this substance called the Shoth that are kind of like ooze people.
There's so much more than that, though, Tim. There's so much more.
They just want you to lose your bones.
Telling you wrong.
They just want you to lose your bones and be at peace. It's very unsettling.
Yes.
And he got pricked. I didn't check for traps because I never do. And he got pricked, and I was like, the character was pretty sure there was something inside of him, one of these entities. And so I cast Guardian of Faith. I basically performed an exorcism on myself in the church and got it out. So it's like that. We don't kind of always jump to magic right away, but when we do, it's trying to find ways to justify it.
That's really cool.
Or extrapolating on like the physical components, like the material components of spells, and like what do you do to cast this spell. And then the Brothers Grimm is also a pseudo low magic system. It's set in the real world, but it was actually based on the characters are trying to figure out what happened to their dad, who used to run D&D games for them. So they play as both themselves and avatars of their D&D characters that their dad created for them when they were kids.
Meta.
That is so cool.
That's really cool.
Really rad.
Yes.
It's very cinematic.
And then your main campaign
Yes.
on Saturdays, where is that? That's in a homebrew world?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a world that I've created, and I did take some things from kind of traditional like D&D lore. I use some of the Pantheon of Gods, but I have since kind of moved us and continue to move us away from that. But all the setting and everything is all my creation. And Em and I are actually launching a new show soon, I think next month.
Yeah.
We're teaming up with Legend Keeper, which is they have a website that's really great for kind of categorizing and coalescing all of your lore and history into one place in a kind of easy way. And I just use a Google Doc, which is a nightmare.
The hell document.
Hell document.
The hell document.
When you start out, though, the instinct to do a Google Doc is so straightforward, because I started there too.
Yeah.
And it just feels so right, because you're just like, I got a couple things, and then I got another tab, and then I got 6 tabs, and then you're like, I got 18 tabs.
It's bad.
and then you're like, can my tabs link to other things? Because I got other.
Yeah,
then it's a mess.
I can't use the find function anymore because if I do, it crashes the webpage.
Oh, wow.
It's like no, there's too much.
So sorry, you said it was Lore Hold?
Legend Keeper.
Legend Keeper.
Yes.
Legend Keeper. So we're launching a show where I'm going to be putting all of that into a Legend Keeper kind of style, and you can create a wiki from that and all this other stuff. So we're going to be doing that together, and we've been building out kind of the sort of the origins of the world itself, which has been really fun.
Because our campaign is nearing an end at some point. We're at level 16, so I mean, with playing weekly, we find and facing bigger and bigger things, there's got to be an end at some point. Not that any of us are ready to let go at this point.
Do you level by milestone?
Yes. Yeah. But Tim and I are working on expanding the lore and getting all of it into Legend Keeper before our campaign 2 launches. And Legend Keeper is a really cool product. Please go take a look at it for everyone out there. The folks who run it are amazing. but there's ways that you can keep stuff private for just you as a DM, but you can also share stuff with your players as well, so they can see things. You can see atlases and places and log stuff in there.
Sounds really handy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're working on making it like a publicly available as well, so you can also share it with your audience and things like that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And then the other Wednesday show that we have is a show we created called DM Roulette, which is where we have, because a number of the folks in our group are also DMs, and so we created a show where we all are the players and we're all the DMs. So one person starts as the DM, and we each we get characters, like our character sheets get created by one of our producers, and then all we give is a name. And so we show up and we figure out who our characters are. We get the character sheets. And then for the first round, it's every 20 minutes. 15 minutes.
Yep.
It rotates. So we all rotate to the right.
It's an improv game.
Yeah,
It is.
absolutely. It's entirely improv. And so the next person becomes the DM, you take on the character, and then you just move through all of the characters, because we also have, you rotate on a natural one that rotates.
The chat can donate some bits to
make it
rotate. Yeah.
And then it ramps up after one round of that, then it goes every 10 minutes we switch, or a natural 20 or a natural 1.
That sounds super
And the chat can also drop in a Wand of Wonder that immediately drops into someone's hand, and 3 charges go off. And then people can also drop in a deck of many things. And it drops into one person's hand. They draw 1 card. It's dropped into my hand twice.
Oh my God.
It's very fun.
That's super fun.
It's very, very fun.
Gamified the hell out of it.
And we've been able to invite some really cool folks to come guest with us. It's been an absolute
Well, yeah, it
blast.
becomes a really good vehicle for that. 'Cause
Totally.
You don't have to craft it in narratively to like your campaign.
And there's
and
that's
be
a
like, how
that's
do I
a
do this?
yeah, that's like it's a selling feature. It's like, hey, there's no prep. Please give us a name and just show up.
Play the game.
Yeah, it's a great time for it.
Question the second.
Yes.
Okay.
That was awesome.
This is for the Blackwater folk. What D&D class or race would you want to be in real life?
Good question.
Oh, that's so hard. You go first.
Tiefling cleric, easy. Done. Easy. Tieflings are awesome. Tieflings are so great. And as a therapist, I feel, I don't know, maybe you feel like closer to a cleric than anything. I feel closer to a cleric than anything else. So yeah, Tiefling cleric.
Cleric of the Order of.
I mean, I guess when I created Nepentha, my current character, Tiefling Grave Cleric, I'm fascinated with death. Death is something I'm academically interested in too, as someone when part of grad school and all of that kind of stuff. So, Grave Cleric has been. I would just be Neppy. That's great. Neppy's awesome.
I guess I would be a dwarf, because they're my favorite.
Hey.
Yeah, absolutely. They never get played enough. And I don't know, glamour bard, because why not? That'd be fantastic.
So we heard. So you're a therapist. What's your background?
I'm an actor and a writer and a comedian and an improviser. I've been improvising for a very long time. Yeah, that's kind of my jam.
The bard comes next.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, performance and that kind of stuff is sort of inherent to what I do and what I like to do. Yeah.
That is a good question.
I was like, huh, what? Huh? I was just listening. Grave Cleric. I'm unfamiliar with Grave.
It's from Xanathars. Yes. Yeah. So
okay.
they're generally their gods are the gods that hold the line between the barriers of life and death. The people who are supposed to stay alive stay alive. The things that are supposed to be dead stay dead. So yeah, it's a very fun. It's different than a death domain cleric.
Okay.
But
So wait, would they have like a real issue with like necromancy?
yes.
We had a necromancer in the party for a while too.
Yes, that was a journey to try and for my cleric and the party's necromancer to kind of figure out how they interacted with each
Is
other.
Mollymock a grave domain?
No, Mollymock was a blood hunter.
Yeah.
Oh, not Mollymock. My goodness.
Yes, he is.
Caduceus, yes.
Yeah.
Caduceus was a grave cleric. Yeah.
That is embarrassing. The other character he played, speaking of death.
Yes.
Spoilers.
Mollymock did die.
So you said there was a necromancer, and one of the
Yes.
questions I was going to ask is, there's a couple here. How has your show, since you've turned it from a game into a show, how has it evolved because you've been streaming it? And have you had any rotation of players at your table, or table since it's been all online and remote, as you've become streamers and that has become an element? Has that changed the dynamic?
Yeah, we've had a few people. We had some people in the home game who just like life circumstances as things go, they just don't have time for D&D anymore, or like unavailability. And then same with streaming. It was kind of the similar thing. It was like the capacity to run a weekly game, especially as things started to open back up, it just became harder for people. But the core kind of cast that we have now is pretty invested and solid, and it definitely changed. I know for myself as a DM, it went from being a much more localized performance within the living room to a more kind of more awareness in that performance.
Just mindful that someone's watching.
Absolutely.
There's cameras right now.
And like how I structured the game, and how, especially, it's been thinking about how an episode is structured. As we've done more and more, thinking about, when is the break going to be, and when is the end of the, like, it's not like in our living room where it's like we go 5 hours and we don't really resolve anything in the end. It doesn't really matter.
Do you have a time limit up per stream?
Usually, it's kind of a soft time limit. We try to end between 11 and midnight.
Because we start at 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm tired.
But and we have to put our kids to bed, so we don't start.
We have children, so we also are like, I'm gonna have to get up in 6 hours. But yeah, so like that's usually when we end. But it's like I try to find something that I really like to do is I like to find a cliffhanger, and that was something I also did in our living room. But it's definitely, I'm more aware of it now that we do it online, and I love ending on a cliffhanger. I think it's exciting.
It's where you get most of your power from.
And yeah, they like to joke, I'm a cliff lich, and they like that's how I feed my energy. It's just my and now it's so finding those moments and like just being aware of them and where to look for them, and when they present themselves, to be like, okay, and that's where we're gonna end it. If it's 10:30 or if it's 11:30 or midnight or whatever.
And I think there's been a lot of something that we've done actively as a group is a lot of us come from either performance or performance adjacent backgrounds where you're not necessarily a performer, but working with children and young people, you're constantly doing some sort of performance.
That's true.
And a lot of us have backgrounds in working with young people. So being aware of how you're presenting on stream and how you engage with other people. We talk a lot about like ways to foster each other's role play, and we would consider ourselves like a very narrative forward stream. So we're constantly working to engage each other with like, can we push forward the story in a way that feels really emotionally rich and grounded.
You DM the Wednesday game, right?
I DM the Brothers Grimm and the Weird West, which are kind of mini campaigns that are actually ending in April. Tim DMs the main campaign, and the DM Roulette is.
It's all of us.
It's all of us.
It's a roulette.
It's a roulette.
Yeah.
And then we've got some new campaigns coming out in the summer. We're going to be doing what we're calling the Rage Saga. We did a huge stream drive back in December where we streamed for 146 hours straight.
It was bananas.
Yeah, it was bananas. It was amazing. And we
All the same people?
No, we did some.
Okay.
We did some pre-recorded content and a lot of live.
One of our players like really was at the forefront of that.
Adam,
Adam, if you're out
Adam,
there,
we love you.
He's incredible, and it was really his baby, and
Yeah.
he really took the lead on it, and was in so many games.
So many games.
It was wild.
We had a couple games that were 3 Minotaur barbarians who were just trying to get a job done, delivering a package, and it was the Raging Bulls saga. So we're going to bring that back. One of our stretch goals was to bring that back for the summer, so we're going to do that. And then I am going to be GMing a tier 4 campaign, so level 16 to 20, based on the Uncaged Goddesses modules, which are so cool, and I am very, very excited to do that with some fierce femme folk that I'm very, very stoked to play with.
I was going to ask, what is the most notable difference between the two of you as DMs?
Oh, no, you first.
I know,
What are the differences between us
yeah.
as style?
Yeah.
I like to make my players justify things, and basically they'll be like, can I roll a check for this? What check should I roll for this? I'm like, what check do you want to roll for that? Tell me why that you want to roll that check, and how, if you want to roll a performance check to for something completely ridiculous, like, yeah, go for it. Well, the DC might be higher, but go for it. I'm also too less about stats and crunch. Build whatever character you want to come into my games.
Cool.
For me, the story and the narrative is really at the forefront. I could not care less what you have on the paper, but that just informs more of the story for me. That's out front. I don't know if that would be a difference between us, but that's kind of tentacles and teeth.
Yeah, that is.
Are in every one of my campaigns. I like to joke. We had one campaign that I did where TPK was total party kissing. So I like to, the 3 T's of Emma's games are tentacles, teeth, and total party kissing. So I don't know.
And you're very cinematic as well.
Thank you.
Her descriptions are very beautiful and cinematic. Often her games have like an awesome intro and a really great outro. It's very cool.
Thanks, babe.
I would say my style is loose because I'm an improviser and I'm comfortable in that place. I mean, I do a lot of prep. That's like, it's not to say I don't prep, but I'm very open to like, I'm very much saying yes and, like I'm all about it and finding ways to elevate my players as much as I can. And my favorite place to be is just kind of sitting back and letting things happen and just sort of watching like the players interact or have their moments between each other and that. And I bring I like a lot of levity in my game because I like that. But I also, it's been very fun to kind of explore, especially as I've gotten into higher level, the really kind of grand storytelling that is so fun to explore and dive into. They're like, this campaign especially is really like, a lot of them are very close to different gods, and the gods are very close.
Are you finding it hard to incorporate levity the more serious and high level it gets?
It almost is the opposite. It's like the higher the stakes, the more the levity is needed to kind of offset those moments of like, they're dealing with and they have dealt with some really hard decisions throughout the game, and I like putting them in situations that feel like no-win situations.
You do.
The Kobayashi Maru. And they're really good at finding ways out of that, but then I like to also reward that with fun and levity and you know, offering up those moments too and finding moments where we can celebrate that stuff and throwing weird stuff at them that will make them laugh.
I think it makes, one of the beautiful things I love about Tim's DMing is that it can be so, all of us at the table are so emotionally invested in these characters that we give so many hoots about what happens in this game, and then it makes the beach episode or the shopping episode there's so much lightness to it because we're all just taking a collective exhale after this like exceedingly long arc.
What are the differences in your NPCs? Between the two of you?
That's a good one.
My NPCs, usually I try and keep them really, really grounded.
I could tell that last night. I popped into the Weird West, and it was a moment where there was just the weight in your delivery of the voice of the NPC that was talking to them.
Yeah.
Was like, this isn't a moment to fuck around. And it wasn't like, it didn't feel like it was the most important moment. I didn't know the backstory, but it was like you set the tone just with your voice of this is serious, and I was like, ooh, this is pretty fucking good.
Oh. Thank you. Yeah, I like to give my NPCs, and I know Tim does this too. We like to both give our NPCs and the other people that coexist in this world stakes. They all have lives, so they should be invested in their own lives and not simply be focused on this party that blows in and out of town every now and again. My NPCs always have information if you're nice to them. Always.
Do you plan all that out?
Generally, yeah. Everybody has something.
Improv heavily or no?
That would be one thing I don't do as much. I don't improv as heavily because I don't have an improviser's background. I'm good on my feet, but I don't improv as much as Tim does.
Yeah, I think a lot of the NPCs that have had staying power in our campaign have been improvised.
Absolutely.
Really?
Well, they just like they've come out of like situations and then they've just become very important to the party. Like the Blackwater as a party loves to adopt NPCs.
We don't leave anyone anywhere. We don't.
So they have somebody who is essentially a sidekick to one of the characters who's like, he's a Petch, which is like a rock goblin. And they, another fixture of this campaign is they've gone to the different elemental planes. and they were in the plane of Earth in a city called the Scar, and the Petch were kept as slaves, and there was one that was trying to escape, and it was about to be eaten by a sand spider, and they saved it because they couldn't let this thing die, and then it became, he was like, I have to go back and save my friends now, like, because they were going to go back, and then that NPC, they like went back, and one of our players was like, he was like, they had an extra space in their teleport, basically. They were able to
Plane
leave
shift,
a
yeah.
plane shift.
Yeah.
And they had one more spot, and he was basically like, who wants to come? And the player was like, I want to find the Petch that looks most like Macaulay Culkin. Why, I don't know. But that Petch, and I was like, yes, of course there's one that looks just like Macaulay Culkin. And then that character, Clack, became this character's sidekick.
Our
and he's now
best
like
boy.
a fixture of the party, and he's like central, like they're now at a place where they're meeting the titans of these different material planes, and they need their help, and some of them they gain a mark of that titan, and Clack got the mark of Grumbar, who's the Earth Titan. And so it's like he's become like, and I'm not trying to be like I'm not a DM who wants to also be a player. It just is like they've adopted Clack, and he serves a purpose, and he doesn't really participate in the combat as much. He can. We built a mechanic where he can, and his fixture is that he has a wand of wonder. Now that's a staff of wonder, but so basically, they like if they're desperate, they can call on this like chaotic item to be like something will happen.
Please.
So,
And I think also our fans in our community have like Clack is their mascot.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like,
really?
Yeah, we call our fans are the Gravel Boys.
Gravel Boys.
Wait. Clack is there's in the intro, like when you start your streams, there's the static image of the characters, and then there's the little like animatic.
Yeah.
Is that Clack?
Yeah, it's Clack.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm like that. That's
Animatic
ringing a bell.
who tells everyone about all the characters.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
By the way, I think that's really, really cool.
I made it. Yeah.
Oh, it's so. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, shit! It's so good.
Thank you.
Are you the artist too?
No,
Oh,
I am
okay.
going to take a second to plug our artist. Our artist is the amazing Tiana Kovacevic. You can find her at miss._Marston on Instagram. She's done our logo. She has done all of our campaign art and will do all of our. She was our first
really
fan.
good.
She's our first fan, and I love her so much.
And
She has done.
You got sweet merch.
Yeah.
We do, yeah. This was our shirts from our fan expo. We do have a Redbubble store where a lot of our designs are on stuff.
nice.
So it's a great. Our art is awesome.
But I will say, Em made that in PowerPoint.
Thank you.
And she can make anything in PowerPoint.
I refuse to learn Photoshop or Adobe. I don't have the time, but I do know PowerPoint very well.
It's really cool. For those at home, it's like, so you're waiting, it's like the starting soon screen kind of thing.
Yeah.
But Clack is there, and it's a drawn version of the character, and then saying welcome to you, and then catching you up on what's happened with the characters. And I was like, oh, this is different. I haven't seen anyone else do it, so very, very cool.
I based it off of the like point and click games that I used to play as a young person. Because
You even have the little sword on the like the thing.
yeah.
It's
But yeah,
really good.
and like a lot of those NPCs like have just grown out of situations, and then some of them have been really integral to kind of character growth as well. Like there's a character who's married to the queen of the kind of home city that they all base themselves in, and they got married before she became a queen. And it was partly like a way for me to have an excuse to role play with this player who was newer to D&D, and she's wonderful. And it was just a way of like me creating a character and a way in, like the character was created before that, but it was like, oh, there's clearly a connection here. Let's expand on this, and that's an opportunity for you to role play. And I love finding moments, and I think this is a lot from my improv background, of just setting my players up for success and like putting them in situations where they can succeed, and especially through role play moments and stuff like that.
Our party and our table, we've always tried to cultivate like a very strong aspect of safety, where we do safety. We use safety tools. We check in with each other like before, middle, after. We do grounding before, and stuff like that is cleared. Like if you're going to romance someone, you talk to that person as a player beforehand to make sure that stuff is okay. Or wanting to make sure that everyone feels comfortable with what is going on at the table, especially if bleed is happening too. Like if the feelings that you have within your character are affecting you as a person or vice versa.
Are you, as a therapist, do you find yourself like a little more keenly aware of that?
So keenly aware of that. Yeah, group dynamics I'm fascinated by group dynamics and how D&D games do operate very much like group therapy. They have, stages of forming, norming, storming, performing, adjoining. Like those are the early 5 tenets of how a group therapy progresses. But all D&D groups go through the same things, and I've often talked a lot about like why most D&D games break down is something is off with the group dynamics.
Oh.
Yeah.
So do you find that you have to address that on a personal level or at the table?
There have been times where there have been stuff that's come up both at the table or in character and out. I think there are a lot of ways that, from character to character or DM to player, or DM to character, you can address a lot of stuff in game by allowing the other players to become aware of what their characters are doing. Maybe they're not aware of it. But then also leaving the space open at the table to say like, hey, something is obviously up. We're friends first, D&D players second. Let's talk about that.
Do you do that on stream?
No, off stream.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we'll address stuff in character usually like within the game, but other stuff happens off stream for sure. Yeah.
Have you ever had to have like a break and play where it's like a moment gets too heavy for someone and they realize this is affecting me in character? Oh shit, it's crossing a line.
We should talk about the.
Have we?
The Raven Queen.
Oh yeah. So we had a moment that was it definitely. Emma's character was in a position where...
Episode 9.
Yeah, it was early on in our...
Wow, very early.
Yeah. So it was like, it was early on in our streaming of the game, and they had, we were in the middle of this thing, and just by virtue of choices that the characters made, basically in our world, Em's character worships a goddess named Npcs, who's the goddess of between the life and death. She kind of replaced the Raven Queen. And in our world, the Raven Queen died at the end of the Dawn War. And so they were going to the Raven Queen's tomb to find something. And while they were there, they went to this island that had been kind of decimated from this war, and then the tomb had been built in that place where she had died. And so then when they went, there was a Nightwalker, which is a creature from the negative energy plane, and it's very, very scary, and it's very, very powerful, and they were only level 9 at the time. So I was like, they'll run away from it, because it's too powerful. I didn't look. It doesn't have legendary resistances. My bad. And their wizard was like, I'm going to cast Banishment on it. And I was like, okay, go ahead. And I failed the save. And I realized in that moment, I was like, oh, okay. So a Nightwalker comes into existence when something gets put into the negative energy plane. When you banish a Nightwalker, that thing can come back. So when you put it back, the only way for that thing to come back is when the Nightwalker goes back to the negative energy plane. Oh. And so when they banished it and kept it up for a minute, it was like, oh yeah, that thing returns to its home plane. What comes back? The Raven Queen, because that's what had happened. She had been pushed into the negative energy plane, so she came back after being in this plane for 2,000 years. Bad. And she has become now, she's kind of the main villain at the moment. She's the matron of vengeance. She's taken on a new mantle and is sort of out to get all the gods who turned their backs on her. And it was while they were in a war with the Titans. So they're like, this is what they're dealing with. But at the time, they were dealing with...
I'm sorry, that's fucking cool.
Yeah. It's dope as shit.
And I was like, I never planned that. I was like, I knew the Raven Queen had been sequestered away.
Oh my God.
But I was like, I never planned on her coming back as the Matron of Vengeance. When it happened, it was like, oh yeah, that means this. Then what does that mean? It was just like, okay, yeah. And the next session they kind of figured out because she basically blew out of the tomb, and they were like, they didn't realize because they got to the tomb and it was all kind of destroyed, like somebody had already been there. And but
as a DM though, you must have just been like, it must have been like, this is the best thing that's ever happened. It's like you planned it, you're just like, I'm amazing.
You're like, how did you? And I'm like, it was all you. You made choices.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Choices were made. I think it's a Tim Carlson special. Yeah, choices were made.
But at the time, they were dealing with this lich who was a king of this whole city, and they were very much focused on that. And that lich king had made a bargain with Tharizdun and was trying to bring him back and unseal him from the abyss. So they were kind of focused on that. So they didn't really think about the matron. They were like, whatever, it's fine.
That's a later
it's
problem.
But as they were going to deal with this lich, they were into the city that was now overrun with demons, and they were like, oh, we're going to need help. And she made a bargain with the matron.
Did.
And basically to be like, you'll help me. And she's like, I'll help you, and then you owe me a favor. And so Em took it upon herself to do that. She was kind of in a very tough spot and it was a rock and a hard place. And so she did that, and then because of that, they all got branded with these wings, and it was like, you're all implicit in this. It's not just Nepenthe, it's everybody in the party is now.
The party was livid.
Yeah, they all have a part to play now. They all owe the favor.
And it was wild too, because it's like, I knew that, like, Neppy knew that it was really bad. It was really, really bad. It changed her relationship with one of our wizards who had been, like, originally a slave when he was younger, so now he's indebted to somebody else.
Shit.
She had just gotten, like, Neppy had just gotten married, and it had changed her relationship with her, like, brand new, like, she and her husband, like, they'd been married for a week.
Yeah.
And it had changed her relationship with him, and it was, and I knew, and like but myself as Emma, I knew that half that table was very, very upset with that decision.
Yeah.
So that was something that I had to deal with personally, and like we cut to a break pretty soon after that scene, and it was
because there was definitely, there was huge ramifications for the characters, but also there was player anger in the moment of like, you didn't include us in this, and it was like, well, like there was more to it. It was like they did kind of push her into the decision-making place.
That's rough, because then, that gets to, like, afterwards becomes a place of consent.
Yeah.
Like, where they feel like they've been violated.
Yeah.
totally.
Holy shit.
And Neppy
That's
had to take that on, and I had to work through that with her. Like, Neppy was grieving that she had to make this decision and, affect the lives of the people she cares about most in the world. And I also, as Emma, had to be like, wow, I made that decision, and now I have to deal personally with the bleed that's coming from it. Neppy is devastated, and so am I. I'm really upset about this. It took me about 3 weeks to work through it.
Yeah, and
we talked about it constantly.
Well, and we cleared the air within the group too,
Yeah.
and so everybody was on the same page going forward, and so we kind of cleared that aspect of it. So there wasn't really any resentment between players.
No.
And we were able to kind of move forward within the game to still have those high stakes and that still be affecting the characters, but it was like, we're still friends.
Absolutely, and it's learning moments for us too as a table,
absolutely.
right? And it was especially a learning moment for us on stream,
Yeah,
knowing that we're having to do this in front of an audience.
Yeah.
And I think that is
brings
one of
the gravitas into it suddenly.
Absolutely.
You're like, oh, Jesus, we should make, like, safeguards for this.
Yeah, and that's part of the safety tools that we employ too. Like, we have signals if we need to get off the air or take a break or stuff like that. But I think that, not that we try to force each other into emotionally, dangerous situations, but I think that emotional depth is something that the people who watch our show really like.
Yeah.
That we're safe to go there. I have cried so many times on the internet. You make me cry so much on the internet. Yeah.
I cry.
Yeah, I know.
But that's the beauty of it. There's
It's
so
the
many
beauty
different
of it.
styles. Like,
Yeah.
we tend to have a lot of, maybe too much levity at our tables. We have a lot of fun, and we rotate
Absolutely.
out people a lot, so we're going to be doing a longer form campaign, but we do a lot of short things.
Totally.
And so, like with Roulette, it allows for people to just, like, really have a fun time.
Absolutely.
And a lot of joking around and that kind of thing. But there's so many types of games out there.
Oh, yeah.
So there's an audience for any of it.
Yeah.
But with what was all just said, I want to know a little bit more about the whole therapy through D&D.
Yeah.
So were you introduced to that idea, or did you come up with that?
No, certainly didn't come up with that. Definitely not. So I started my journey towards being a therapist. I did my undergraduate at SFU. I did my master's at UBC, and started playing D&D while at the very early part of my master's, because grad school is really hard. Needed something to be like, please, I need 4 hours a week where I just don't need to think about grad school. And then got out of grad school and was like, how can I marry these two things that I love so much? So I did some research into it online, and there's a lot of different organizations that offer training for people who are already established mental health professionals with licensure and certification and stuff like that. So I trained through Game to Grow, which is located in Washington, and they had I not had the pandemic not happened, I actually wouldn't have been able to attend the trainings because they weren't offered virtually. But since when the pandemic happened, I was like, oh great, I can sign up for levels 1, 2, 3, and do all of that kind of stuff from the comfort of my living room.
So wait, so you actually started that training while also becoming a streamer of tabletop content?
Yes. Yeah.
That's a very strange.
There's so many people now doing, like I'm hearing about more and more D&D in schools.
Yes.
And then a friend of mine reached out because they were pondering, there was some discussion. She works with women in conflict with the legal system and doing, D&D even in prison environments.
Yeah. Yes, it's huge. In the States, they actually do quite a lot of D&D in prisons, and they're having to do, they come up with alternative systems to rolling dice, because often dice aren't allowed in prisons for gambling. To dissuade gambling, but a lot of them.
That's not a good weapon.
Yeah, they come up with like drawing numbers out of a hat or chit systems or stuff like that. But D&D is very therapeutic, like lowercase t. But when it is applied as therapy, you have the DM is also a therapist. So you are working with a specific group of people who might come in with different, like all the same concerns, or they're potentially a group for social anxiety, or a group to counteract depression or stuff like that. And you're crafting situations and encounters, combats where you are attempting to help your clients move towards growth. So if there's specific issues they want to target, you can help them work through those through their characters.
Does it start at character creation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Are they encouraged to is there a guidance aspect of like mirroring yourself, or alternatively
Being someone else?
Someone else, like
a lot of it too is the
opposition to
therapist
yourself?
providing some insight, like internal, like when you've got so say I had a client come in and they're super, super quiet, don't say a word, and really having a difficult time interacting with people. They sit down with me, they're like, I want to be a bard. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
you want to engage with people, you want to be the face of this party, you may just not know how. So it would then be working with that client to potentially craft situations that they could let themselves shine. And then watching them have success and have their party support them through that, so that they get to have a trial run and a practice success before maybe they go take that behavior or take that new skill that they've learned out into the real world.
It's amazing because even just regular DM games require so much trust.
Yes.
So much trust. And then to think about it, the trust that must have to happen for a DM doing it with therapy. Yeah, I mean, obviously you would take it very seriously, but the dynamic between yourself and the players, the faces looking back at you, it's a lot of responsibility.
The power dynamic is huge,
Yeah.
and I think that's part of it too. Is like therapy, inherently has a has a power dynamic to it. So a lot of it is unseating that and giving the players a lot of the power back to you may craft the situation, but it is on them to how they deal with the encounter. I'm not. I might run everything in the game, but I don't make the decisions that the party does. I just help shape the world around them to foster them towards success in the game that they want to play.
Have you found that since learning the tools to do actual therapy through D&D, that it's changed the way you DM a non-therapeutic, scheduled therapy session?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I think my DMing is very similar in both ways too. My characters are very emotionally gritty. They have a lot going on for them emotionally, partially because I encourage my players, whether they be clients or people in a social game, to dig into that at the table. Let's talk about emotions, because nobody does.
That's fair.
It's so interesting when it happens though at your table, where you don't anticipate an emotional moment. You're like, we came to do something silly. And then it just goes like, oh, this is a lot right now. And then the faces looking back at you, like, what happens now? And I think you're both really good at the idea that you guys tell me.
Yeah, we had a moment like that around a Duragar.
Oh my gosh.
They were in this place that had been, it was like a big counterfeiting operation, and they had come in after all of the fallout. Like a big thing had happened, and basically everyone had left, and there was a few kind of remnants left over, and they found this Duragar, and they kind of milked him for information, and then it was like, they spent enough time with him to learn his name, and like, they got to know him a little bit, and a bit of his history.
Oh, I know
and then it became a dilemma of like, one of the party members was like, okay, let's just kill him. And everybody was like, well, maybe we shouldn't. And then it became a whole dilemma of like, well, there's this other thing here. There's this like forge, this like incredibly ancient forge that's used for crafting really powerful weapons, and now he knows about it. Like, we can't trust him. Yeah. And it became this huge dilemma. It took like most of the game.
Yeah.
And it became a real like.
It almost forced a schism in the party.
Yeah.
It was
amazing.
It blew up. It was like just this very small thing of like, let's just kill this creature, and it was like.
Who is like by like what is written evil?
Yeah.
Like evil.
Yeah.
So how do you guys deal with alignment? Because like that's a whole nother thing. Do you let that bleed out to be like not everything is cut and dry as it is on paper?
Yeah. I generally don't put too much stock into book alignment. It like I do if it serves the story, but generally I try and it's happened since a couple of times, not to the same extent it happened with the Duragar of like you like they'll get to know a creature or something that they were fighting, and then it's all of a sudden it's like, oh, can we kill this thing now?
Yeah.
And it becomes hard for them. And it's like I try not to, because it's always like, well, like who, why are they evil? It's like, are they evil because because of the things that they do, or is it because they've been put in this situation where it's like this is what they have to do to survive? Like it's like these Duragar.
We do the similar thing in our homebrew world where think about like good is priority to help others, and I mean, Matt, you can weigh in if you want, but evil is the priority is to help just myself.
Yeah.
Like the perception of good and evil depends on who has the look and who's doing it, right?
Yeah.
And something I think Tim does really amazingly in in our main campaign is that he'll touch on huge, big world topics. And be able, like the whole arc that happened with the Duragar dilemma. That was very much a commentary on capitalism, and there's a lot of really huge stakes that underline, and it's very cool to watch.
It was like just kind of unchecked capitalism, because it was like
you have a homebrew Amazon.
Yeah,
kind of.
Well, it was kind of like it was an accidental. It was like an accidental big arc. It was like, it started out as like the party early on got a bag of golding, which is just like it's like a bag of holding for gold. And they got it, and they were like, great, we're gonna put all our gold in here, no problem. And what I did is like, initially I was like, it's actually a counterfeit. Like it spits out counterfeit gold. And so every shopkeep that they met, I was like, I'll roll a perception check. And the DC was really high because it was good counterfeits. And it just like went along. And then eventually, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 levels later, they discovered, they were like, oh, this is counterfeit. And they were pissed. They were very mad at me for taking all their gold away.
And you took some idols and relics
idols
as well.
and other rare stuff.
So wait, was it like everything they put in was going to somebody?
Yeah, it was going to this treasure hoard.
That's a good scam.
And so it was like...
Takes notes.
Yeah. And so it was like, they were putting this thing in, and then they found out that it was counterfeit, and they were like, oh, they were so mad, and they were like, we got to figure out what's going on. So they talked to this enchanter, and they were like, and she was like, okay, I'll work on it, like, come back to me soon. And then they just didn't deal with it.
Oh.
We didn't.
For a long time.
Really long time.
And then eventually they were like, oh, okay, like all this other stuff happened, like now let's go deal with what they call the money hole. And they're like, let's go deal with this. And it was like when they got there, it was like this dragon who had been just amassing this huge, he'd put all these bags of golding out into the world.
Genius.
And had all these Duragar working as counterfeiters, and just amassed a hoard big enough to attract Tiamat and basically lure her into a trap, and he killed her and took her place. That was like, because I was like, every few months I would check in with myself of like, okay, like, because they were maybe going to deal with it, and I was like, okay, what would have happened? Like, the encounter gets harder and harder, and eventually it was like, well, that dragon just did what he wanted to do.
That is amazing, because that is the best kind of world building, where in the background the story's still going. If your players check in with it here, it's this progress.
Yeah.
But if your players check in with it way down here, then they are forked, because by the time they get to here, this stuff's been going on in the background the whole time. That's so good.
So they fought zombie Tiamat.
Yeah, they fought zombie Tiamat. Like, they got there, and it was like... there was like this aftermath of this battle, basically. All these devils and were like dead, and all these Duragar were dead, and it was like, they were like, what happened here? And it was this old dwarven kingdom that had kind of fallen into ruin, and that's where the dragon had started. And they went into this massive treasure room, and like they were like, what the like there was all this treasure in here, and they found like this like gilded Tiamat basically like rose up and was zombified and attacked them, and there was a big battle, and there was so now there's a new god of greed. And now they're like, they really want to go and get him, but it's like, no, he won.
He doesn't care about us now. He did his thing.
It. So yeah, it was fun. It was a fun one.
I'm going to cycle back a bit to the therapy thing.
Yeah.
So I'm relatively new to D&D still. Like ready to roll. Rurik is my first character, and I made him intentionally close to myself because I knew that we were intending to do reenactments and that we were going to do this thing. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to make his voice just like, this is my regular speaking voice. This is going to be Rurik. It's just a little bit lower. It's easy to do. I'm not going to fall out of it, like that kind of a thing. And then I put in enough similarities, but enough differences that I would make choices that were slightly different. But then I got into a weird spot where I was like, oh shit, like I'm starting to deal with some stuff that I put into this character intentionally. Yes. And now I'm like, oh, this is
that's the good stuff. That's the good stuff.
That's bleed.
So,
That's bleed.
Is that what you do to craft the characters? Is sort of create something that is similar?
Sorry, I touched my mic.
Guide.
Yeah, I would say that when a client is crafting a character, you let them craft the character that they want to craft.
Okay.
Because imagine, so say you have a client who comes in, has difficulties with managing frustration. They come in and they want to play a barbarian that kicks down literally every door in front of them. Great, fantastic. Or they're angry and they punch walls, fantastic. Imagine the character growth that you observe in that client when it's the day that they don't kick down a door.
Yeah.
Or they talk to that person first before punching them out. So
do you get ones that are sounds terrible and like judgy, but the quiet person who plays a bard or the rage like frustration person who plays a barbarian, those seem obvious.
Yeah.
But do you find that there's ones that are like a lot more puzzle box like, where
people will play like nuanced versions of themselves? Every character, I think, that people play as D&D role players contains at least one small aspect of yourself. Whether you could be playing the most different character ever, and there is one thing of you in there, because that allows you to step into that person and embody that person for a little bit.
That makes sense.
So you're either playing some avatar of yourself. So the characters that come out of like a therapeutic, in a therapeutic game, the growth that happens in the characters is often mirrored in the clients as well. And when you have a therapeutic game, you play about an hour and a half, and then you do about 30 minutes of debrief after. So it can be really cool to talk to the clients and be like, you know, maybe it's that client that doesn't want to talk about themselves. They're not ready to deal into their own, what's going on for them. But you could be like, hey, so I noticed when your bard, Asher, went in to talk to the shopkeeper, you said something that you have never said to them before. What was that like for you? And asking them to talk through those experiences in front of other people, normalizing that experience of sharing with other people, but also hearing a bit of their processing behind it as well, making them even subconsciously aware of what is going on in the game can translate over into real life.
That's just really cool.
It is really cool.
It's very cool. I love the potential.
And don't you have moments when you're playing where you have a response to something that you do or someone else does that you didn't know was going to happen? You know, and you're like, I just came here I'm going to shoot things, or I'm just going to do this thing, and then somebody else does something, or your character makes a choice. You know, I made a character choice a little while ago where I was like, oh, my character is actually really afraid right now, and is going to hide in this moment. And I was like, I would never hide. That's like, why would I do that? But I'm like, my character is having a really intense response. And then I started to get kind of like emotional about it.
Yeah.
But my players responded to me, and we play over Discord with no video.
Oh, yeah.
So they could only hear it in my voice. Like, they didn't know what my face looked like. But as my character is describing what's happening, they're responding. And then some of them felt protective, and some of them felt frustrated. And it was just like a shift in our whole dynamic.
Totally.
Because I was having a response that I didn't anticipate.
That's bleed.
Yeah. Bleed is moments of vulnerability
So cool.
too,
Yes.
right? Like, it's always like, if you can craft a safe table in that trust, like it really is in that trust between everyone, that like if you can craft that trust, then you can have those moments of vulnerability and feel safe to go there and be open to those surprises, because those moments are so juicy.
Okay. Yeah, I have a bunch of other stuff I want to ask, but we actually have run out of time. So, again,
Of course we have.
as we said earlier, we're just going to have you guys back on once we move studios. And
Love it.
So
Would love
there
to
you
come
go.
back. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much for being here. Like this was a lot of fun.
Just a treat.
Okay, so at home, tomorrow. Tomorrow is the next episode 9 of Ready to Roll. Here we're live at 5 for the preamble, and then a little talkie with myself and Chris will be here, and stay tuned for that. And then Monday, I'm gonna mention this again, new Twitch channel, Questline Esports, is where you're going to tune in for Overwatch, and they have a tournament starting not this weekend, but next weekend with $10,000 in cash prizes. So go follow that channel. We just started it like a week ago. So get over there, follow that channel, check out the tournament. It's coming up. We'll see you next Tuesday for episode 4 of Burn the North. So there's only 2 left before we shut that down, before we move again. And huh? What? Oh, I thought you said something. Wednesday, LFG Community Day. Thursday, we'll see you again for Filthy Talk. And until next time, stay filthy.